Hello, everyone. David Chitel here, CEO and founder of NGL Collective and host of Hispanicize Hangout. Hope everyone is doing well. Today, we have an incredible conversation ahead. I'd like to welcome our guest, Mr. Luis Miguel Messianu, the creative chairman and CEO of ALMA. Wave hello.
How are you?
Esperanza Teasdale, the VP General Manager of PepsiCo. Thumbs up. And Liz Campbell, the Senior Director of Cultural Engagement at McDonald's. Hello, Liz.
Hello.
How is everybody doing? Everyone's good?
Pretty good. Yep, fantastic.
Excellent. Well, we got to start, 2021, it's gotten off to an interesting start. I would love to hear what you're up to and how's 2021 treating you all so far? Ladies first.
Sure. So I can go. So far, so good. We're all healthy, employed, safe. I live in the Northeast, so we've had records amount of snow. So that's been quite lovely to watch happen, which means that it's good skiing. Trying to stick to a workout regime. So I'm doing it. I'm really pushing myself to stick to it. And, in the hopes that it'll just help keep my energy up and keep me focused, and trying to eat better, but sometimes that kind of slips away, but otherwise really good. No complaints and just really excited about the new year.
Good to see you. Looking good, by the way, looking good.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm trying the same. I fail often, but you know how it is. Liz, how about you?
I am fantastic, but Esperanza, I am on Peloton. So if you are on Peloton, we need to exchange names, and you can inspire me to get on Peloton more than I currently am. But definitely, let's exchange profiles, and we can track each other and motivate each other. But I am doing fabulous in 2021. I feel as though 2020 was a hard year for everybody from a personal perspective as well as from a business perspective. But I am energized about what 2021 will bring. And it's even beyond that. I'm energized about where we're going as a society and where we're going as marketers in the future. And I'm energized by the fact that so many people of color are going to shape this. And we have a seat at the table. So I'm ready to go.
We are going to dig into that subject in a big way. By the way, I'm a mirror user. My apartment doesn't fit a Peloton, so go figure.
Oh.
I recommend it. Luis Miguel, how about you?
I'm a mirror and a Peloton.
You both.
We alternate.
Nice.
I have to confess, I don't use it every day, but I make it a point to try to exercise every day. And to my two wonderful partners in rhyme, SP and Liz, I think it's so important to stay active and have such an impact on our days. Yeah. I'm an eternal optimist, David. You know this. We've had this conversation, so I always try to have a very positive outlook. 2020 was a tough year, but knock on wood, we closed an amazing year. In fact, a record year for ALMA. We're healthy, we're productive, we're positive. I think if nothing else, the pandemic has really demonstrated the value of what we do for a living. I think branding and multicultural marketing has been enhanced. Of course, the context, the social, Liz was talking about social justice. But beyond that, I think the value of marketing and branding and advertising has been enhanced. And in a way, 2020 marked the end of total market, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm very hopeful and very, very positive, about 2021.
Much to unpack there. We will touch upon the famous total market. Yes, of course. So I'm curious, how, you touch upon it a little bit here, Luis Miguel. COVID touched us all personally and professionally. What do you think are some of the key takeaways, and how did it really maybe change the nature of marketing and specific maybe even to our industry?
I think, from a personal perspective, it really changed the order of our priorities. I think it really demonstrated that some of the things that we thought were important are not so important. Mm-hmm. And the really basic things are what really we should focus on: our health, our family, our home, our loved ones. We get so hung up on our daily jobs that we forget what's really at stake. And I've taken it to heart. I'm really making a point to spend time with the people that I love, virtually or my close family, of course, for real. But I think it's important to do things like we're doing now. We need to spend time with colleagues, with people that we admire and respect, and we enjoy working with, because life goes by too fast. Professionally, as I said before, I think it has shown us a lot of things, but it had really demonstrated that we can be in close contact with our partners, our clients, our agencies, and we don't need to waste 2 days of our lives to fly, for a half an hour meeting or a 45-minute meeting. If you combine the two things, if we make sure that the priorities are in the right order, and we really look at productivity and the value of our time and our health, for that matter, it's going to change the way we do business. We're already, talking about the office of the future. I think a lot of things will change. COVID has been terrible, but in a way it has become an equalizer and an accelerator. And then we were forced to adopt technologies that we should have adopted a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to hear, Liz and Espi, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll just say that when COVID first hit, my pastor, everybody stopped going to church in person. I remember listening to my pastor online, and he said, right now we're talking about essential employees, essential workers and how we're supporting them. And he encouraged us to take a step back and look at our own lives and understand personally what was essential and non-essential in our lives, and concentrate on the essential parts. And so, Luis Miguel, when you were saying that, and the way that you were describing it in terms of your family and priorities in business, it reminded me of how I took a step back and said, what is essential? So essential in terms of my family, essential in terms of food and things that I chose to do. What do I really need to have a prosperous life? And then as I flipped it from a business perspective, it became what was essential in terms of how we were engaging with the consumers, how we were taking risk across the brand. And what I saw was that it opened us up to take more risk because we had to get closer to what the consumers wanted, and we had to understand those consumers more intimately. So it forced us to tap into social media more. It forced us to tap into technology more so that we could have a broader understanding. But then as a brand, it forced us to focus on how we showed up and what was essential as part of McDonald's and what was just fluff things. So we could cut out all the fluff and really get to how do we engage with consumers in a more authentic way. And so I look at COVID from that perspective. It helped me to focus on what was essential and non-essential and get rid of the fluff and focus on what was most important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll build on that too. I think on the personal side, my son will be going to college in September, and being home has helped us really be on top of him to prepare him for that moment. How he studies, how he focuses, how he manages time. We basically found out he can't do any of that. So we had to implement, resources from school to help teach him how to do that. And this concept of executive function. I'm like, he's 17, now 18, but we had to work on that. And it was a lot of work. I would not, and neither would my husband, have been able to have done that like we did if we weren't home. There's no way. And nor would we have been able to observe for ourselves what was happening. So on that side, it's been great to have the privilege and benefit to work from home. And on the business side, I would say, definitely, I love the idea of essential and non-essential, and call to action too. It was a moment in time where, hey, from the seat we're in, what can we control? What can we decide? What can we influence? And so then that's led us to take action in many different ways. So that's something else that this bias for action, I think, is something else that I feel I've learned. Is like, hey, if not now, when? If not me, who? Just to, be committed to doing the things that are right for our business, for the consumer, but for the community. So that's been something really great too.
Absolutely. So a lot of consistency there. Put it another way, YOLO, and keep it real, and lean in, all that good stuff. So Liz, you touched upon it a little bit earlier about the social justice movements, and there were so many in 2020, right? Racial equality, voting, gun violence, on and on and on it went. I'm curious, from all of you, we could start with you, Liz. How do you feel social justice movements, change the nature of the way we look at marketing? We'll look at it from that angle. And also I'd love to hear your perspective on, it's a balance of, it's the right thing to do, but it's also smart business. Some people look at these initiatives as, it's some kind of charity. No, this is good business. I think we should lead with that. Curious to hear your opinion as well.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is with the social unrest, or I'm going to say social awakening, because I don't think it was about unrest. I think it was awakening in the United States. I think it forced us to, as each company, it forced us to look at what our values are and to make sure that our values were coming up off the papers in terms of what it was written on. We had to live those values in our people, in our actions, in terms of how we showed up. And if we weren't living them, everybody was put on Front Street. And it was put on Front Street from the consumers. The consumers said, hey, you are saying A, but you're doing B. So then it forced companies to take a step back to make sure that the actions that we were taking could marry up to our values. And the way I look at it is that it boiled down to humanity. Regardless of whether it was a Black thing, an Asian thing, a Hispanic thing, it boiled down to looking at humanity at its best and at its worst. And it focused us to say, this is about people. This is about humanity. And how do we want to show up as a brand? But then also, how do we want to show up as individuals? My values were challenged, and I've worked at McDonald's for 16 years, but I had to take a step back and look at my values to make sure that the work that I was doing, that it was living up to my personal values. And if it wasn't, I felt comfortable enough to challenge anybody. And I did. And there were things that happened that I had to challenge people in terms of things that were said and things that were done. And I felt empowered to do that more so than ever before.
It's wonderful. How about you, SB?
Yeah, I think so. Similar to Liz, finding those opportunities to really make a difference and use the muscle that we have and resources that we have as a company were really important, because folks were looking for companies and brands to take a stand, and we did that with the ALMA team as we launched our Unmute Your Voice campaign, where we had this incredible cultural moment, that we were all driving toward the election, and hey, how do we encourage people to register to vote? And that took a lot of conversation internally, took a lot of risk assessment internally. But in the end, it was an incredible moment for when our CEO, Kirk Tanner, said, you know what, we have to do this. This is the right message, and let's do it. And, when we got to that moment, it was just like, oh, wow, we're really doing it. And I was very proud. I was very, emotional in a lot of ways too. Just kind of reflecting back to parents and journeys and where I am and what I can influence. And so, but it was all around in the moment, what action can we take? And that's, not that easy with a big, cruise liner that we're on right now. But I will say that our company is very much embracing speaking fearlessly and courageously, acting as owners. And so I really appreciate that. And I leverage those principles that we have as a company to then, do what I think is right, do what I think is important, to take a stand on things.
Luis Miguel, you want to add to that? Sounds like there was some collaboration on this, perhaps.
There was some plotting. I would just compliment what these two wonderful ladies have said. As you know, I work with both of them, and I have a lot of respect and admiration to both of them and to the companies that they represent. And what I would say is that, of course, 2020 was a turning point for our nation. There's no doubt that in a way it served as a reset. And that's why I think we're all enthusiastic about 2021, because in a way it feels like a new beginning. I think it was a year where character, courage, and bravery really became part of our top of mind. And in that regard, it took courage for SP and Pepsi to get behind Unmute Yourself. I remember when I presented that camp, which, by the way, I started with my volume muted, as you might remember, SP. And I closed by telling her, this is work that matters. And I think what we do is important. For many years, I think we were okay with getting the crumbles, and it wasn't right. We are making a difference not only in our industry, but we're making a difference, for this country, and our presence is important, and the moment is now. So I would say it's exciting, it's challenging, but we need to stand for things that we care about, and there's an opportunity to show communities, and I hate the term customers. I much rather refer to people or citizens. How companies and brands can really play a role in people's lives, and call it a voting registration campaign, call it J Balvin music program that celebrates our origin and your contribution and talks about how golden we can be. There's ways to inspire and to inject optimism. I always say that creativity and optimism are synonymous, and we are paid to look at the bright side, and in that regard, we have that responsibility.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, can I just say applause to you, Luis Miguel, because you at ALMA are working with two well-established brands between Pepsi and McDonald's. Both of our brands have been around for a while. And the work that you guys did in 2020 to push us both forward within the Hispanic segment is fantastic. Because you mentioned J Balvin, the Dorado work that we did, which was about Latino pride and elevating that and showing that. So kudos to you for pushing both brands forward and continuing to do that, because I know it's not easy.
Totally agree.
Absolutely. So Luis Miguel, you did touch upon something a moment ago that I want to dig into a little bit more. 2020, it was the year of trying to get through it and stay optimistic and, do the best we can, necessity being the mother of invention, however you want to look at it. 2021, there is a sense of optimism. Some are calling it the year of multicultural marketing, that we finally, quote unquote, get our fair share, our just deserve, if you will. Obviously, there's more diverse leadership in place. We'll leave it at that. The census results are coming out. there's the whole idea of the minority majority. I'm curious, do you agree with this? Is 2021 going to be a breakout year? Of course, this is in the shadow of communities of color being disproportionately affected by the pandemic. What is your message to marketers and people who are, unsure about leaning in on multicultural in the wake of all of this?
Do I start?
Sure.
There's no choice. To me, as I said, the moment is now. And it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that happens. But as a modern marketer, if today you're not really focusing on multicultural, if you're not understanding the unstoppable train that's coming at us, move on because you're living in a different reality. And I think we're seeing it in so many aspects of our lives, beyond just marketing. I think we're seeing it in healthcare, we're seeing it in politics, we're seeing it in culture, you name it. The influence, the presence, the contribution of people of color, it's funny how the corporate world or even the government lumps us all together. We come together, but there's subtleties and differences and nuances, and that's what makes us each one so special. I've been having conversations with people at McDonald's, people at Pepsi, and other clients, and this is not the political thing to do. This is great. This is not about white, brown, yellow, or black. It's about green. It's about dollars. It's about business results. It's about growth. Companies are always after growth, and this is where the growth is coming from. It's as simple and as complex as that. So I think corporate America needs to stop kidding themselves and wake up and smell the coffee.
Amen. Liz and SB, curious to hear your thoughts.
I agree with Luis Miguel. I also feel like you can't put anything back in a bottle right now. If we need to make sure that we're supporting the multicultural communities because they have supported us, each one of these brands, as we built the brands to become as big as we are right now. And I also feel like customers are asking for us to respect their money and respect their time. And the way that we have to do that is by understanding who they are, understanding their identity, so that we can make sure that we are being respectful as we are asking them to spend their money on our brands. I think that there's an education that still needs to happen throughout the entire industry about multicultural marketing, about consumers from a multicultural perspective. And there's an education that needs to happen in terms of the difference between multicultural marketing and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when I see things that have happened in the past, regardless of whether it's total consumer marketing or other areas, I don't feel as though there was the proper education and the proper conversation to happen, which is what caused some of the issues. And if we don't get multicultural right now, we're going to go through the same thing of causing issues in the future.
SB, I'll turn the conversation to that because you're touching upon a very important subject. And Luis Miguel, I know you're very passionate, as is Isaac. We've all read his Forbes pieces, his many Forbes pieces that are wonderful. There's a huge issue of, are we multicultural? Are we D&I? Are we Latinx? Are we BIPOC? Are we total market? All of these different terms, and it just gets so confusing, and people like to bucket things, as you know, in marketing, 18 to 49, et cetera, and so forth. How do we get this right? Are we having a different conversation with the chief diversity officer than we are with the chief marketing officer? Should those people be talking more? There's a lot to unpack here. I know I threw a lot at USB, so go. What do you have to say about all that?
Yeah. There was an ANA meeting that I sat on last week, and I think I heard someone talk about, total marketing equals white marketing. I believe that's what they said. And I was like, wow. Now, or they may have said general market equals white market. And I was just kind of floored, right? Because, we're trained to kind of say, general is broader, it's inclusive of everything, but then you take a subset out. And then I agree with where Luis Miguel went, which was, hey, modern marketing is multicultural. Like, it is just the composition of the population today. But the reality is that that perspective still needs to be understood and accepted. And it's not. And it's interesting because my boss and I have had conversations around like, well, longer term, we shouldn't need like a Hispanic marketing team or a multicultural marketing team because everyone is so in tune to what the nuances are of the environment. And maybe someday, certainly not right now, and certainly not for the, longish term, but therefore it makes it even more important for us to understand that it is a multidimensional consumer base and that you still need to find the ways to tailor and fine tune. And I would argue that even in saying a subset of that is Hispanic marketing. So for the first time this year, we're actually going to be doing marketing that's more Mexican and marketing that's more Caribbean. So we're separating that out right now as we're working with ALMA on, broader creative, because we're now also working with divisions and regions of the United States where the driving Hispanic ethnicity, it's not one ubiquitous crew. Obviously, we all know that. So I'd argue you have to even go even further down into Hispanic marketing and what it really means based on geography and population.
So the antithesis of total marketing, you are doing granular, nuanced Latinx, if we use that term, or Hispanic, whatever is your preference.
That's right.
It's very, very granular what you're doing.
Yes, in fact, because the local relevance is really where we can make a difference.
Absolutely. There you go. Liz, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yes, so I love, Esperanza, I love the way that you are approaching this. Because I think that there's areas that we can all learn from the work that you are doing in Pepsi in terms of how you're approaching it. I would say historically, McDonald's did a really good job of doing local marketing and specifically looking at the nuances within our multicultural segments. And then we moved away from that, unfortunately. And I don't know, and I personally don't believe that it was the best thing for us to do from a business perspective. And I think that it hampered our business. So right now we're in the process of trying to re-educate ourselves about multicultural marketing, as well as other individuals and entities within the organization who are working, whether it's in supply chain, operations, DE&I space, about how we go about doing multicultural marketing and what does it mean to engage the consumer in that way. I do think that it will continue to morph and challenge us as a brand, especially as we look at what is the difference between DE&I and multicultural marketing. And I know one of the questions that you asked was, should the chief marketing officer and the chief diversity officer be engaging more? Of course, they should. They should be engaging more. In my role, I'm working more with the DE&I team as we are looking at how we engage our customers or consumers. And a lot of the work will cross over, and we have to figure out how do we work together to tell a holistic brand story. But I will also say that our DE&I team has said that they are focused on the employee. That's a big part of their employee, and it may not be the employee base of today. It could be the employee base of tomorrow. Whereas I'm focused on the customer journey, but there's intersection there that we need to figure out how we show up, because it's still one brand voice that needs to come play.
I love that. Well, I'm just curious, what is your opinions on centers of excellence versus more horizontal approaches, or should it be a combination of both within large organizations such as the ones you work in?
That's tricky. I mean, I think center of excellence could be construed as influencers, or, hey, we have consultants. I'm sorry. Hey, here's some thoughts. If you want to implement it, go ahead. But if not, it's okay. And I think that's a miss, because then you're not then having a party who's responsible for not only uncovering an insight or a growth opportunity to then flow it all the way through to execution. So when you say center of excellence, I kind of see it as consultant versus decide. And
there's different thoughts on it. Some people say a center of excellence is the one sort of holding the torch and keeping it all together. And some centers of excellence are involved more at a strategic level. Others, sadly, are an afterthought. Some are doing a combination of that, plus integrated brand managers. I'm curious. It's just, a lot of people are leaning in on this and trying to figure it all out. Liz, did you have an opinion or?
Yeah. So I feel like if you are a center of excellence, I feel like you need to have the keys. You need to have the keys and the resources to drive your business. And I agree with SB that if it is going to be that you're just a consultant on the side, then that's not the best role. And I equate it to this. At McDonald's, we have people who are food scientists. They are a center of excellence. We have individuals who are on our culinary team. They have a center of excellence. We have people who are media buyers who have a center of excellence. We need to have that same thing as it relates to our multicultural consumer base, because this is a business imperative that we are looking to drive. But again, it needs to be with the resources in order to affect the business, and not affect the business after priorities have been decided, but have a seat at the table at the beginning so that we can set the priorities and help drive them forward.
I'll agree with that. Luis Miguel, as an agency, do you have a preference in terms of the way clients are structured? What's been the most effective combination for you?
Hard to generalize. We've had different kinds of experiences. SP knows, because she's the result of a big transformation at Pepsi. Once they really committed to a Hispanic business unit, the results start showing. Before that, it was optional, and to SP's point. And with McDonald's, we've always had people that are empowered and accountable, because it makes a difference. I think each company has its own reality. Each company has its own structure and approach. At the end of the day, it boils down to who's in charge and who's really pushing, and who's committed and who's living the strategy and the commitments. Not because they're here, but in both cases, SP and Liz are bested, not only professionally but personally. This is important. This is our lives. This is not just a job, and when you're bested, it really makes a difference. And of course, it's a journey. It's not a destination. It's work in progress. We learn, we take those lessons, and we apply them to the next process. Life is not perfect, and when we accept that, and we understand that at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we're all trying to do the right thing, through conviction, through trust, and by demonstrating results, you keep pushing. And I love the metaphor. And I tell this a lot to especially creative people that work with me. They always talk about thinking outside the box. And I keep telling them, no, what we do for a living, it's not thinking outside the box. And I use a metaphor, which is a tennis court. The client has a reality, they have a corporate reality, they have a strategy. So in a way, they help us paint the court, and they draw those lines. Our job is not to put the ball outside the court. It's about putting it as close as possible to the line. And you have to train for this. And that's the difference between the Serenas and the Federers. When they put the ball on the line, they make millions and millions of dollars. And it's the same in our game. If we really push ourselves to get better every time and put that ball on the line on behalf of our brands, then we're game.
Absolutely. Just watch out for unforced errors, Luis Miguel.
Well,
it can be a killer.
That's part of the game. That's part of the game. As long as you learn from them and you don't make them again. But think about it. That's what we do for a living. We try to push the boundaries. We try to take smart risks, and it takes two to tango. You have to build these relationships, and you have to understand the reality of your clients. We started the conversation by talking about Liz's audiences. You have to understand who you're dealing with, and in as much as you can have some empathy for your counterpart, then you build the best program that you think you can do, and most likely, and I know us, it's never good enough. There's always a room for improvement, and we're gonna keep pushing ourselves because again, this is a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. So speaking of pivots, and we're gonna wrap up here in just a few minutes. How have you all pivoted on the production front in a virtual world? I'm just curious, anecdotally, has anyone traveled at all? How is our clients going to shoots? What's sort of the new normal? Tell us.
Every single spot that we shot in 2020 from February on was done virtually. Our Super Bowl spot that we just did was virtual. One of us was virtual. The one that we did with J Balvin with ALMA was virtual. Every single thing has been virtual, and we've still been able to capture those live action. We've had some of our best creative that came out of 2020 as an overall brand. I think it forced us to get more targeted in going into the shot. So as we were planning out the work that we wanted to do, so that we can ensure that we got great work. But yeah.
Same, all virtual.
Same, all virtual. No one's gotten on a plane. Luis Miguel, how about you?
Mostly virtual, except that Jorge Murillo, who's our main creative on McDonald's and on Molson Coors, wanted to meet Tom Flores. So we just did this amazing campaign on behalf of Coors Light, and talk about Latino pride and staying true to my personal mission, who has been to help elevate the image of Latinos in the U.S. An unsung hero who had been snubbed for so many years. And we present this idea of having him inducted into the Hall of Fame, which happened this last weekend, and we're very happy. But Jorge told me, I cannot not go to Palm Springs and meet the Iceman. So we made an exception. He had to quarantine. We had to take all the precautions, but mostly remotely. And to tell you the truth, we were scared at the beginning, with the challenges that all these productions presented. We have shot remotely in Denmark, in Australia, in Los Angeles, in Mexico, in Argentina, you name it. And we had a great run last year. And as far as I'm concerned, because my top priority is the well-being of our soulmates, as I call our team, we'll continue working remotely for the time being. Most of them are younger than me, so their place in the vaccination line is probably behind me. But so many things have changed over the last 13, 14 months. It used to be that we had to send a producer, the creative team, in some cases the client. Through these platforms, you have access, you're looking at stuff. The only disadvantage I would say is that now more clients are involved in the shoot, and it complicates things. Everybody has an opinion, and it's not the case with Pepsi or McDonald's, but sometimes you have too many cooks in the kitchen, and that's also a little bit delicate. This is a message for clients, not because we have access to remote platforms. We should change the way we have approvals, and we respect the lines of authority. But in general, it's been quite an experience, and we keep learning and we keep improving. And again, we had an amazing 2020, and we're very proud of the work we did on behalf of our clients.
Thank you for sharing that. Wow, I could do a whole episode. I think we'll have to have you back, Luis Miguel, to talk about all of those virtual shoots. I'm sure it was quite an experience. Okay, so as I said, we're going to wrap up. I'd love to hear sort of your final words on what you're looking forward to most in 2021, what's maybe going to be a challenge, and then also from each of you, what would be your message to BIPOC communities that have been impacted by COVID and are perhaps struggling at this time, and those who maybe are doubting our communities and the opportunity it represents? So sort of a two-part. You want to begin, Liz?
All right, you put me on the spot here. I had to think about it. So
we're with you, Liz.
I would say, so for the first part of your question, in terms of looking forward to in 2021, I, again, just want to say I am looking forward to all of the opportunity that is there for us. I feel as though there is not one thing that any person on this call can't do because of the diversity that they represent. And I just want everybody to step into their power. And I'm looking forward to stepping into my power, whether it's personal, whether it's professional, but that's what I'm really looking forward to in 2021. And I don't see this as it started in January of 2021, and it's going to end in December. I see this as the rest of my life. I am stepping into my power and I'm not going back. And I'm going to challenge my teams that work for me to do the same thing. They're already doing it, but I'm going to challenge them to do the same thing as we continue to move forward.
That's a great message. How about you, Espy?
No, I love how you articulated that about stepping into your power, because I think that's how then we're able to elevate other people. I think a big part of what I'll be working on this year is our racial equality journey, and helping to bring to life the commitments that we made for the Hispanic consumer. So we've got some dedicated work that we're going to be creating around accelerating small businesses, accelerating la bodega, tienda, carniceria, and then as well as, all the initiatives that we've been working on that help elevate the positive role that Hispanics have in advertising. So those are some of the focus areas that I'm really excited to contribute to. And the community ones are probably the most meaningful ones for me, because I think it's the place where we have just touched the surface on how we can impact at that level. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay. The last word, the man, the myth, the legend, Luis Miguel Messianu.
I'm really looking forward to a year in which we celebrate the fact that specificity brings authenticity. And I really think that the more specific we are, the more authentic we will be. And I think it was said in different terms. We have a responsibility to the communities we serve, to portray them in the right light, to crash into their private moments, either with fresh information, with respect, with a dose of entertainment, with something that they didn't know, but more importantly, with something that makes them feel good. And in that regard, I think the best vaccination is optimism. I know it's going to be a tough year, probably from here to the summer. But if we use our superpowers, to quote Liz. We can cheer people up, and I think it's part of our job description to bring a positive message, to celebrate the brands that have an impact on our community's lives.
I love that. Step into your power. The best vaccination is optimism. Specificity is authenticity. I didn't write them all down, but I did see you ladies writing some things down. So
I wrote them down.
I'm like, it's all here. The always prolific, all of you. By the way, you three are all-stars coming back here on the show. You've all been on before. It was great to have you all here today. Thank you so very much. This was a really, really incredible conversation, as we knew it would be. Luis Miguel Messianu from ALMA, Esperanza Teasdale of PepsiCo, Liz Campbell of McDonald's. I thank you and wishing you all a very happy, healthy, and prosperous 2021. May our paths continue to cross.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.